Hello. One of the comments under my last video was as follows. Oh, great. So we're going to prolong it. This person was talking about the provision of arms to the Ukrainian people from various places, whereas before they'd been somewhat blockaded. And the comment was as follows. Oh, great. So we are going to prolong it and escalate it. And God knows where this will end. People are suffering and dying while arms manufacturers make profits. Well done, everybody. What a wonderful world. Which in many ways reminded me of the advice frequently given to women in the 1970s when people started talking about, how am I going to put this without getting YouTube involved? Physical assault. Yeah, the sort of physical assault that happens most often to women. The advice usually ran along the lines of, well, lay back and enjoy it. Fighting will only get a violent response from the attacker and you'll only end up being hurt. Now, looking at it logically, it's good advice, isn't it? It just shows you that logic has its limits. Don't fight, and there's an even chance you won't end up in a state of non-existence. Of course, that came with a slight downside, because if you didn't fight, then if the case ever made it to trial, it would be deemed that you didn't put up a fight, and so you must have agreed to the activity, and therefore you weren't really assaulted. What's a girl to do? And so the situation in the Ukraine, they know they're going to get a walloping, whatever the outcome. And their President Zelensky seems not to be the sort of person who hides in his basement or who runs away from his people when they need him. Well, that deals with all of North America, doesn't it? I'm sure that must irritate the elites in those two countries up there. The example of Biden and Trudeau might have been in Putin's mind when he decided to attack. Then again, he might be thinking of the ex-president of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani, who turned out to love his country so much that when he left so precipitously, he took several millions of pieces of it with him. No, Zelensky is out there in his flak jacket telling his people to fight. Should he back down and so save lives? That's actually for history to decide. But judging from the way the people have rallied to his call, judging by the way those border guards on Snake Island told the Russian army to go away and commit an impossible physical act, and soldiers blowing up bridges with themselves, I'd say that President Zelensky has got the mood of the people spot on. Well, he used to be a comedian after all. He knows how to gauge an audience, and he knows that the Ukrainians haven't forgotten the deliberate genocide of the Holodomor committed by the Russians that did for about 5 million of them and drove some to the madness of cannibalism. There are grandmas alive who still remember that. And they've all been given guns. It's sort of interesting how Putin seems to be following the script of another dictator, that one not quite so clean-shaven, who invaded a country on a pretext of protecting some citizens who could loosely be classified as being in common with his own culture. That is, he invaded Czechoslovakia on the pretext that he was protecting the ethnic Germans in the Sudetenland. And he ended up getting stuck in the war and bringing in Muslim troops. In World War II, it was the Bosnian Muslims co-opted into the Waffen-SS, while in this case, apparently Putin is drafting in the Chechens. No doubt because the Russian army isn't exactly being fulsome in its aggression. Oh yes, it's fighting, but there are also pictures of Ukrainians standing in the way of tanks and the Russian soldiers not running them over. Of course, that could change. But for the present, the Russian army seems to be in two minds about the situation. Although, well, standing in front of a tank, you can't be sure of the gentility of the commander in that, can you? And we know that there are Russian citizens standing in the public squares of Russian towns. I will show you a picture of one demo in St. Petersburg, who are also very much against what's happening in the Ukraine. And I don't think Putin calculated on that as well. I don't think he calculated on the bravery of the Ukrainians, for sure. It comes from a knowledge of the bit of history that Putin missed out when he started talking about historical precedents in his famous pre-invasion speech. Putin talked about how the Ukraine was part of the Russian hegemony for, well, you know, it wasn't even a country properly until fairly recently. But he forgot about recent history and didn't mention that. He didn't talk about what the Russians did to the Ukrainians within living memory. So it's amazing how you can be selective about history, isn't it? Right, well, I am expressing my admiration for the Ukrainians and also for the Russians who stand there in freezing city squares, because they're definitely taking a risk too, and they are definitely worthy of our respect. And I'm also glad to say that Germany has sort of changed its mind about supplying arms to Ukraine, which it doesn't give me any more respect for Germany right now. I think they acted disgracefully, but at least they were susceptible to the ridicule of the world when it came out, that story about the 50,000 bloody helmets. Anyway, so I am Grannyopteryx. I am on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I have a Twitter, Gab and Parler handle at Grannyopteryx, and that's where you should subscribe if you want to know whenever I've uploaded a new video, because especially in YouTube, the notifications are notoriously erratic. Okay, well, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Grannyopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.grannyopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.